Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey, an assistant pastor. He rescued me because he delighted in me, explained David in the Bible book of 2 Samuel. This was no longer the inexperienced shepherd boy playing his harp as he watched the sheep on the hills around Bethlehem. This was Israel's monarch, King David, now an old man, looking back on life. Rescued. From the vantage point of old age, King David was overwhelmed by God's initiative in rescuing him from the hands of his enemies. He reached down from heaven and took hold of me. He drew me out of deep waters, he confessed. David had been rescued time and again, rescued from the giant Goliath, rescued from the mad King Saul, rescued from his traitorous son Absalom, rescued from the Philistine armies. His whole life was a testimony to God's initiative in rescuing him time and again. But David had also been rescued from the internal enemies of guilt and depression, which resulted from his adultery with Bathsheba and murder of Uriah. So why did the Lord rescue David? Not because David deserved it, he didn't. Not because David had earned it, he hadn't. The psalmist explained it in this way: God rescued me because he delighted in me. Every born-again believer in Jesus Christ does well to pause occasionally, like David, and reflect on God's grace. We have been rescued from physical dangers and from a wasted life with hell on the horizon. But we've also been rescued from the deep waters of guilt and depression, which result from our shortcomings. God has reached down from heaven and intervened. It was this aspect of God's initiative that moved Charles Wesley to write, "He breaks the power of cancelled sin. He sets the prisoner free." But being rescued is only part of our story. The rest is this: God displayed such grace just because he delighted in us. The God who numbers the very hairs of our heads, who cares about each little bird, who clothes the lilies of the field, is the one who says, "I have loved you with an everlasting love." The Lord your God will take great delight in you, wrote the prophet Zephaniah. He will rejoice over you with singing. Every day our thinking and our behavior should be touched by the reminder of God's delight in us. When tempted to pride, it should humble us. When tempted by depression, it should lift us. When tempted by anger, it should soften us. We have earned nothing, we deserve nothing, but for some reason, God delights in us and takes the initiative to rescue us. Raleigh the poet put it well: "I was lost, but Jesus found me, found the sheep that went astray, threw his loving arms around me, drew me back into his way." Hey, God thinks you're pretty special. Shouldn't that influence the way you live today? And thank you for tuning in to Village Church Connections.